Cool.
Let's go.
So, good evening, sir. So we are about to do the tactic of the our um to call this server administration. So task six is the join Windows 10 to domain Windows Server 2016. So in the previous task we installed Windows 10 in a new virtual machine. So it's already installed there, and we are ready to set up everything. So in this task, you are have to perform joining a Windows 10 workstation to our domain. Recall that a domain is a local area network or LAN with workstation and servers under control of one central security server or group of servers. These servers, called controllers, refer to a database that keeps track of users, their passwords, and what they're permitted to access. In other words, a domain is controlled. It's a controlled LAN that provides a single login for users to gain access to network resources like file storage and network printing. So the principal benefit of joining a workstation to a domain is central authentication. With a single login, you can access different services and resources without logging into what each one. Another benefit is that settings in a computer's operating system can be changed or controlled by the network. Thus, if a computer needs a certain configuration to function fully on the network, computers belonging to the domain can receive that configuration automatically. So to start our task six, we have the uh, downloaded. We just downloaded the video. It is this to start our topic. So let's start.
This lesson, we're going to be joining our Windows 10 workstation to our domain. We're also going to be renaming the computer to something that'll be more recognizable. So the first thing we need to do is open VirtualBox, and
Convert
we
to
need to make sure that our domain controller is powered on
domain
and our
controller.
Windows 10 VM is powered on. They both have to be.
Uh, how to hold on. So we need to start bang both. So power on man daw. Ano ba? So this is the forgot PCS domain, I think. Started. Next is start. We will both have this copy this to record second. Next is next step.
Ah, doon di siya screen nakadagan di.
Let me take something. Related na.
Muna tong dati nga di mo open no.
Anta. So, as said in the instruction, first instruction is we have opened um, both machines. And,
Powered on at the same time, and they have to be connected to the same network. So if you didn't use my NAT,
uh, same network pa. Same network. Lasat Pandi Network Log. Lasat Pandi Network Log. So,
network setup that I'm using, just make sure that whatever you're using, it's the same. So right here, I can see that my Windows 10 VM is on a NAT, and if I click over here on the domain controller, this domain controller is connected to a NAT network. So we need to match that. Right click on the Windows 10 VM.
Wait lang. But we don't have to follow that next step. Kasi working naman. Lahat network na both naman data
You
na.
choose settings. And I'm going to go down to network. And under the attached to, I'm going to change it to NAT network.
Tapos ano, login
And we're going to
network.
select my NAT network.
We
I'll click OK.
in
And now
the
we can
previous
just
activity
verify.
in the previous activity, I think we configured it out already before alongside installing the Windows 10 data. So we are
that
good.
they're on the same network. So if I just look at this, I can see NAT network and it's my NAT network. I click on the Windows 10 VM, NAT network, and it's selected to my NAT network. So now what we need to do is pop over to our Windows 10 VM and go ahead and reboot the VM. Anytime you make a
Just
hardware or settings
the
change on a
dining.
VM in VirtualBox,
Since wala naman may change virtual box, so hindi namin mag-start
you want to go ahead and restart the VM
and
to let the
just
changes
continue.
take effect. So we'll wait for the VM to boot back up, and then we'll rename the computer and join it.
Now, i-port ko yung alternative. Both. Sorry. Maybe lagi. Okay. I'll do this to them. Ano yun siya? Ano ang size niya? Ano yung dito yan sa...
Same dagway. Dili ito kitang ano no ano yung
Gamay lang siya. Ano na ako.
katong sa.
Ayun, wala akong sorry pa. Sorry lang. So,
To the domain. Okay, so the computer has come back online. So I'm going to hit right control and delete. And we'll type in my password here. And it's not wanting to resize the resolution like it should. So I'm just going to minimize it and drag it like this. And a lot of times that allows it to resize the resolution. There we go. We can see the dynamic resolution is now working. So I'm going to hit right control and F and go into full screen mode. And now I'm going to hit the start button in the bottom left hand corner. And I'm going to type in CMD. The first thing we need to do is...
So, this is ilaw. And
open command prompt and make sure that we're on the same network as our domain controller. And we can see
I see config.
Dapat daw same
we're getting
network.
a 169
Same
auto
daw
configuration IP. And what that means is that we're not reaching the DHCP server. Now, I'm not sure if that's because we just booted up the machine. It should be grabbing an IP address from the NAT network DHCP.
Wait, I check for the protecting. Ano daw na to ang main. Ano na to? Ano ba? Same default gateway. So, meaning, I think it's the same. So,
but what we're going to do is let me just run this again. Okay, so now that I run ipconfig again, it just took a moment. Now we have a 10.0.2.7 IP address, but that's not on the same network as our domain controller, which is on 192.168.0.1. This is a problem with VirtualBox. VirtualBox, the DHCP server, does not recognize what the default gateway is or what the network ID is. The NAT network only assigns IP addresses in the 10 subnet regardless of what your network actually is. So what we're going to have to do is change this IP version 4 manually. Okay. Now, if we had the DHCP server role installed on our Windows Server domain controller, we wouldn't have this issue. We'd be able to turn off the DHCP server on our NAT network and use the Windows Server as a DHCP server. But we haven't done that yet, so we're going to have to settle for setting a static IP address. So in the bottom left corner, click the Start button, and we're going to click the Settings over here. And we're going to go to Network and Internet. Now, we're going to click on change
Network and internet.
adapter options here at the bottom.
Adapter. Option. Okay.
And we'll right click on Ethernet and choose properties. And I'm going to uncheck IP version 6 since we're not using that. I'm going to
Okay. We can check.
select Internet Protocol version 4 and choose properties. And I'm going to specify an IP address. So I'm going to select use the following options here at the bottom. And we'll right click on Ethernet and choose properties. And I'm going to uncheck IP.
Oh, so, not only API basic, so, independent.
Version 6 since we're not using that. I'm going to select Internet Protocol version 4 and choose properties.
So, name, not property.
And I'm going to specify an IP address. So I'm going to select use the following IP address. Okay, and we're just going to give it 192.168.0 since that's what my NAT network is configured to.
Not network. Architect, or not diba? Oo naman eh, 10.
Asa?
Oo,
Sa ano?
oo, oo, kuha
Katong
eh.
sa dati?
10.5 or more.
Katong gigamit last time?
Ito. Dili kay gina-change nga ang IPv4 nga lang bukupit ang IPv4 reset atin kami. Kinamata yung gina-change.
And I'm just going to assign it to .100. We could use anything except for .0 as the last subnet. We couldn't use .0 because that's our network ID. And we couldn't use
Kalimot
10 because our domain controller is using 10.
IPv4 sa
And
unay.
we can't use 255 because that's the broadcast IP. So we could use
Or
anything
mamili lang ta
in
dara sa doa
between
kung
1
asa ang
and
gamiton.
254, excluding 10 because 10's in use. So what I'm just going to use is .100.
So, follow na na to. I'm going to participate 0.100.
100.
If I press tab, it will autocomplete the subnet mask. Now this is mathematically calculated based on the IP address that you're using. That's a whole different course, understanding the subnet mask and how IP works in subnetting. I'm not going to get into that right now. Just know that if you enter the IP address here at the top, you press tab, it'll autocomplete it for you. You don't have to worry about it. All right, so for the default gateway, we're going to do 192.168.0.1. Now,
0.1. So, into also 158, 0.
9 times out of 10, if we go back to our command prompt here, we can see that the default gateway that was assigned by DHCP is .1.
So, wait lang. Bakit na lagi ata ka? Tinatak mo lang yun. Oo, tama naman to. Hindi naman nakakailangan i-change ata.
Karan dara sa ano?
Itong IP kay same naman siya sa ito ang main.
Generally, that is your router's IP address. So if you have a switch that your computer is connected to, you would input that IP address here. It's not always .1. It could be .10 or .20 or .50. It could be anything, but it's generally the IP of your networking switch that you're connected to. Now, for the preferred DNS server, I get a lot of questions on this. Like, where do you find this IP address? How do you know what it is? It's the IP address of your DNS server that is on your network. In our case, if you remember, our domain controller has the DNS server role, so it's the IP address of our domain controller, which, if you remember, is .10. So 192.168.
Domain controller. Okay. Sama ko eh. Pwede ko. Sa pinakakarong yun nga, hmm, di ko
So, pwede na siya
so,
mag-escape lang.
ay naburag connected mo gud ang ato ang ang yun. Wa man niya kita tong isa niya, murag
Bali
nag-connect na
sa
mo gud
iya,
ang
iya
ato
may,
ang default gateway ba? So,
oh,
naulid na ko.
8.0.
Wait.
so bali sa iya, murag
Remember, our
iya
domain
pang
controller has
i-connect.
the DNS server role, so it's the IP address of our domain controller, which, if you remember, is .10. So 192.168.0.10. If we don't configure the DNS server correctly, we will not be able to join the domain because the DNS server is what resolves itflea.com, which is the domain that we're going to try and join. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to hit close, and I'll close out of this, and we're going to run ipconfig one more time. And we can see here that we are getting an IP version 4 address of 192.168.0.100. Okay, so now we're on the same
Nag-change.
network.
What?
We could try
Ah, ano, tama yun. Kanina man na tayo, diba?
and ping the domain controller, but the Windows firewall is going to block that on the domain controller. By default, you used to be able to ping and it would allow ICMP requests to go through, but now Microsoft blocks ping requests. So if I try to ping 192.168.0.10, I'm going to get a reply here because I have enabled it, but more than likely you will get a timeout back. So basically
Kaya,
what you're going to see, if I just try and ping an IP address that's not valid, what you're going to see something like this, where it's just going to say trying to ping, and then it'll say destination host unreachable, or it'll just say that there was a timeout, request timed out, just like that. Okay, so now that we're on the same network, what we're going to do now is try to rename the computer, and then we're going to join it to the domain. So again, under settings here, I'm just going to close out of this in case you closed yours. We're going to hit the start button, and we're going to click
mag-root tayo. Settings,
settings
and
on the left side, and we're going to choose
window,
system. Then we're going to go down to about here
about, yeah,
at the bottom, and we're going to choose rename this PC. And right now it's set to this desktop dash, and I think that's like a serial number. It's randomly generated. What we're going to type in is ITF for IT Flea, and then WS for workstation, and I'm just going to call it 0.
ITF, domain name man yung igamit. S pang gamiton,
CCS.
workstation 01,
1. So IT Flea workstation
IP3 man daw. So, ato kaya itong domain mo is, yeah, ano nga itong
01. And we'll click next. And it's going to say you need to restart your computer. I'm going to say restart later. Next, we're going to go to connect to work or school.
data.
Yeah, very start later.
And,
Tapos,
connect to work or
ito na siya
I access.
access work or school.
Access. Ano mo na? Galing.
And it's going to say you need to restart your computer. I'm going to say restart later. Next, we're going to go to connect to work or school.
What? Connect to work or
So, sige ito. Lo kita siya gipindot. Mura siya gipindot niya na bro nag-prompt
Tara.
na
Access work or school.
And down here at the bottom, we're going to say connect.
Now, tapos, nag-click mo ko.
And again, at the bottom, there's an alternate actions, and we're going to say join this device to a local Active Directory domain. because that's what we have set up.
Okay.
It's local on this network, and we're going to join it to a domain.
Oh, wait lang ta. Loading. Loading. For na po mag, ano,
Tomate.
wa. Hayap ko. PC chan.
Joining
Tara.
domain.
Ang giingon is, ano daw, di ba? Join this device per local active directory domain. So, click. And tara.
So the domain is called itflea.com, and I'm going to click.
Okay, itong ipangalan. Kapital mo ito na. pcs.com.
Ah,
So,
capitals.
Next.
CCS.com.
so, next
And
na siya. And next. Kasi itong pangalan natin
Yes.
dyan. Lasat Pandi. Lasat Pandi.
this, since we got this pop-up
number.
saying enter your account to verify you have permissions to connect to the domain,
Patay, mali.
this means that we are connected to the server. If we were
So,
not
connected
connected
na
to
ta
the
sa
domain
server.
controller, we would
Kay,
not get this.
kay gihatagan naman pag nga nga pop-up. Kay kung ana sa video kay kung dili ito ta connected, dili daw siya maghatag og login credential.
Message, it would say it was unable to find it or unable to resolve it.
Hindi nga mouse
Also,
dito.
under the IP version 4 settings, if we did not specify the correct DNS server, it would not be able to resolve itflea.com. So I'm going to type in administrator, and I'm going to type in the password for that account. And this account, if you remember, is the account that we created when we installed Windows Server 2016. So it's our domain administrator account.
Kung mag-start kasi mo kay ma-start kag sa ko
Sa imuha lang and since ang
Ano?
cursor nasa imuha. No.
Ay kailangan pa ta ka maghawa sa init ay kanang mo alt tab sa init. Kaya pag maabot mo ano dire kay kani at anong maklik-click
Account. Okay. Now I'm going to click OK.
Kasi mas hindi ko galtab.
Mo ino natinga ko akong madrag man pud akong mouse, madrag akong mouse, maabot tara abot pa sa nga.
Ano?
Ah,
Ang password. Mo yata na tong 1 to 6.
ako ko na buntot check. Dapat ni pwede ko check out.
Or basig ang
Eh,
kanang Lasat
eh,
pandi
basig.
kay nay number.
Yung naman itong din po. Mali gid eh. Wow.
Ano dapat day ko day ano sa ano no? Sa
Dapat
sticky.
kinukunan. Tama man. That kumat.
Bali
Pero,
password lang mali. Pero tama agad iyang username.
na, mali. Tama. Mali. Balik ko. Wait. Makita na mo Jeff. Tara dong alat. Ano mo?
Ay wait.
Video. Ay, bata.
Nung sa
Ulit
niya
ako.
ko dili mo gunong maliw ko kung ay
Tab.
disconnect daw ang any desk door. Nya mo connect ko usab. Retry lang ba ni? Para ano? Aka na daw. Nani gawas?
Na,
For image.
try ito itong ano. Last part. Ano itong video. Skip
Sa
dito
ano?
sa nagbatag password. Task
Sa
5.
task 5 na wait lang. Peta ang video Drea.
Ano mali ko? Check your account ng password ng again. Ano ba nasa password?
Captures.
Except lang po na nakalimot ko nga na i Start from 2, 3 di akong may nagumagawa dito ng
Sa part 2 yata to.
part 1.
Wait lang,
Sa part
pinapangidap
na
na
ako.
ako. Ito ba?
Wala.
Di ba before pa man itong ano yata? Itong Windows setup. Windows lang page. Nag-install na naman eh.
Ganun po ba?
Ay wait, try not na sa task 5 na
Part 1 ko.
itong tanong na sa tayo double check na part 2 usab pinasugod.
Windows and download. Tama.
Kato pinakauna.
So, pag gisay manggod ako ang password na to. The next screen related sa kanyang
Ay, oo, tama. Yung mga tong gisim.
Remember ko na ako
Remember,
password pero ang tama mga mag.
pero feeling na ko ang naglahi lang yata ang name. Ang, oh, na siya ng part 3.
Okay, tanaw na akong task force na ako sa task force ba? Task force mo na itong natay di tanaw dito yun.
Ay, wala.
Yan na start
Wala.
na.
Good ko yung kita sa 5 ba? Kaya ang sa 5, kay ano lang. Install naman
Use any
dato.
name that you'd want, or if you want to keep things simple, you can use itfree.com too. You won't break my website or anything
Install lang tayo. Tayo check.
Mo daw na itong pwede ilisan or ano, di ba?
manage,
Add
add
rules and
roles, and
picture.
features. On the installation types, click next to
Wala
proceed to
din
the
ito
feature
na
Wait,
setting.
ano.
wait.
Kanina na dati.
Nag, ano
Ay,
lang ata siya nag-solve. Pero nana siya ibagong i-add.
na iba kong giya.
Mali ako
The
nito,
first
Jeff. Hindi
option,
ako.
add a domain
Ay, wait. Kaning folder lagi akong makita lagi.
Okay,
Ay,
folder.
sa
Ang screen.
Ano, sige, type ganyan mo sa password ganidor.
Ang paghinungdan mo ako kay Lasat Pandi kayo sa kani ato
Ay, ang
ani
password
niya
kay
tapos 1 2 3.
1, 2, 3. Oh, mo pud ako ano pud tunog ano ko sa task 4.
Hindi ko na pa.
Tara.
Kaan
server
sige
to
lang close nasa baba authentication
Ay, tama din. Di naman din.
Ay, wait.
ba
Balikan
domain
ako
name.
username.
Ito lang po dito sa ano, ako
our student, you can configure the subdomain. Again, this is not an appropriate option for us because the itfree.com specify a root domain name.
Bawa ni no.
CCS.
Sige lang follow na.
If
Sige window with ano man ata, .com.
Ay,
Instead shows
Tama
Windows
man,
Server
katong
Technical
nasa
Preview.
recording.
Now, this is because server. So if you see Windows
Dra
Server
banda,
2016,
Pero,
go ahead and choose that. If you still don't see Windows Server 2016, choose the Windows Server Technical Preview. Make sure that the domain name system or DNS server checkbox is checked. If you remember, when we installed ADDS, it said that we had to install this role in order for the
Katudra nga
option
part.
means that the server
sa Pandi 1, 2, 3, di ba to?
oo yata. Or murag walay number.
option to the DNS option. The DNS.
Pero wala pud ko'y
Now click next and proceed on
so
to the
far
additional
sa ano, murag
options.
Wait lang, ang
8
name,
minutes mark wala ko'y ang name gani ginapangita na ako pero wala man.
wait,
Wait,
mag-try ka, connect again. Ang gamitin ako
sige
na
daw.
name is CCS ng Yako.
Ayo, basig kato yata door. Murag
Okay, domain name, pangalan,
dili
bro,
CCS.
dakoy na type na Lasat Pandi lang. CCS.
Sino ka na daw?
Relation.
Dili.
Kaya mabalaan nga, mo, kung naman kay, ano, online.
So katong username
Wala
ganina
sa
tama to siya. Tama tong username. Kablog na ako. 1, 2, 3 round po tong ano to, password. Mo to ma-remember po.
And brought to the preview. Just be patient while it completes
Wait.
the checks. Once the check, these errors are pretty simple.
Ito ang pangalan sa iyan.
And now it's asking us if we want to add an account. So administrator.
Tingnan ko, try na nato administrator. So ako, nag-download ko. Saan ako'y nagduman nga. Ako'y type sa before username at something. Ay, administrator lang
Para
gid ko.
admin gid ay gigamit.
Dili ako nag-name administrator. So, ano na
Ay!
siya,
Oh, tama. Na-remember
standard
na po
lang.
na ako.
And I'm going to
Oh,
type
Kaya
in
wala
our
ko
password.
ang nanuman ako, nadto ko gi-type nga Lasat Pandi. Tingnan ko ang katulang kani ata lang to. Kanang name ata. Dili
murag
ka
kana
lang.
yata to sa
For that
dili
account.
yata to sa dira.
And this account, if you remember, is the account that we created when we installed Windows Server
Pag-install Windows Server,
2016. So it's our domain
again,
administrator account. Okay. Now I'm going to click OK.
okay, niya okay. Yes.
And now it's asking us if we want to add an account for the person who's going to be using this PC. Now I'm just going to hit skip. Don't need to do that. And now I'm going to choose restart now. Okay, so now the computer is going to restart. So once the computer reboots, we're going to pop out of this computer and go over to our domain controller.
Habang nag-reboot daw yung controller. Same yun yata. Saan yung ginawa?
So we'll just give it a second to fully load.
Basta mo to itong
Okay, so now the VM has
default
powered
password
back
lang.
on. This is the
Para
Windows
direct
10
naman.
workstation. I'm going to hit Control and F,
Katong ano.
pop out of full screen mode,
Ito
and
na
now I'm
yung
going to
1, 2, 3 sa
minimize
tumay.
this Windows 10 VM, and I'm going to pop open my Windows Server 2016 VM. Okay, so I'll bring this over here. Again, I'm going to hit right Control and F, and I am in the domain controller now. So I'm going to hit right Control and delete, and I will log into the domain administrator account. This is the same account we just used to join the computer to the domain.
Wait. Confused ko.
Ano man?
Administrator man na. So, kung ano nga gagawin.
If I select Tools, Active Directory,
Wait.
ADDS.
Tara.
users and
Wait lang.
computers
Wait lang. Ito yung
Tapos,
unit.
into the domain administrator account. This is the same account we just used to
Manage
join the computer
okay.
to the domain.
Tools.
If I select tools, Active Directory, users,
tools
and
niya,
computers,
active ka na,
Tara.
users,
and if I
computer.
expand
Ah,
itfree.com and click on computers, which if you
then,
remember is the
na
default
siya
container
sa
where computer
compute,
accounts are placed, we can see that we have
computers.
ITF.
Ya,
Tara.
kani.
Okay. So, na-connect na to ang so explain na to Ben. So at katong sa video which is first steps man nata niya which is sayang end is wala nang connect ang iyang iyang domain controller ko to. Wait lang. Domain controller which is kani kay kani daw na PC kani na PC kasi katong gamit nato pag change ano ah pag-connect sa kani. So sayang end is basically wa nag-connect ang iyang kato nga PC ay kato nga machine sa kanina administrator kay sayang end kay ang iyang default gateway is nakitim so ang IP address is mali ata. So sa among end is natama naman since i-check na mo at first kita man yung sa start of the video i-check na mo at first kung same ba sila IP ay o close but ay ano, same ba o kanang ano sa IP address tapos ang default gateway is same man wala na lang may change tibuhat so ah natama na may nakita naman ninyo karon it is kani connected ang katong kani nga machine kani pagkihap sige clap 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 kani okay kani direct sa ano sa ato ang server
WS01. So now we
sa
could drag it into another organizational unit if we'd like. We can assign GPOs to this computer. We'll get more into that later on in the course. But for now, that is how you join a workstation to a Windows domain. In this lesson,
so
we're going to be
natama naman mo nakita naman niyo nga na ang katong nga computer dahil nga server sa mga active directories so mana mong task next so I think that's all for on our tactic which is learning Windows 10 to our domain Windows Server 2016 so thank you for
Listening.
listening
Listening
and
and
watching
watching.
and I hope you for if you ask where are other videos, you can go to this YouTube channel and there's a playlist there which has all uh, task 1 up to task 5 and later i-upload them ang task 10. So thank you for watching and that's all for our task 10.